Welcome to the first episode of Haunted South Carolina. Today we will be discussing the Lizardman of Lee County. Imagine you're a teenager in the 1980s. You likely don't have a cell phone. You finish your shift late at night and begin your drive home through rural South Carolina. Now imagine that your car breaks down, necessitating a late-night roadside repair. Even nowadays, with the proliferation of cell phones, meaning you can call someone for help, that's still kind of a scary situation. Now imagine you find yourself under attack by an 8-foot-tall humanoid lizard creature. If our most credible witness is to be believed, that's exactly what happened one July night in 1988. Before we get into the video, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me. This is my first video in this style. I've been doing gaming content for about a year now, so the style and format of these paranormal videos is subject to change as I learn and improve. Anyway, let's get into it. The state of South Carolina has a rich history, and this includes incidents of the paranormal, supernatural, and strange. Because it was one of the original 13 colonies, our history stretches back for hundreds of years. Despite this history, there are still alleged sightings of supernatural entities in the modern era. One of these entities is the Lizardman of Lee County, also known as the Lizardman of Scape Ore Swamp. The first reported sighting of the Lizardman is actually fairly recent, dating back to the 1980s. In July of 1988, the Lee County Sheriff's Department investigated a car that had been damaged overnight. Later, a teenager named Christopher Davis reported that his car was also damaged, and added that he witnessed a creature approximately 7 feet in height, with scales, 3-fingered hands and claws, and red eyes. Davis's story is admittedly a bit dramatic, involving a late-night shift, needing to change a flat tire in the middle of the night, and being attacked by the creature, who jumped in his car before Davis managed to shake it by applying his brakes. Whether or not this actually happened, the local media jumped on it, and over the years, the local Chamber of Commerce has definitely encouraged these reports. In August of that year, an airman at the nearby Shaw Air Force Base reported a similar incident, but in this case it was claimed that the creature was shot and injured. However, this airman later recanted his story after facing possible criminal charges for unlawful carrying of a pistol. As the 80s drew to a close, interest in the Lizardman began to wane. There were occasional sightings in the 1990s and the 2000s, but none of them grabbed the same level of media attention that Chris Davis's story did. The Lizardman eventually faded into a local legend, occasionally drawing tourists and the occasional monster hunter into the Bishopville area. Today, the Lizardman is part of the area's culture, with events like the Lizardman Stomp being held as recently as June 2024. Regardless of whether a 7-foot-tall humanoid lizard with glowing red eyes really roams the countryside of South Carolina, this quirky cryptid clearly left quite an impact on the collective psyche of our state. In 2015, a woman snapped this photograph, allegedly showing the creature. Case closed, right? Well, it is a little on the silly side. I don't know, to me it just looks like a costume from Star Trek the original series, or maybe like super early The Next Generation. One thing that really interests me about the Lizardman is how geographically isolated he stayed, only really appearing in one part of one state. While with other cryptids, like Bigfoot, you might have sightings all over the world, the Lizardman seems content to stay in South Carolina. I don't know, might seem strange, but I totally get it. I feel the exact same way. The Lizardman has been somewhat quiet since the initial sightings as well. According to a report in 2009, a further 12 sightings were reported in the summer of 1988. But since then, there haven't been many reports. In fact, when researching for this video, I haven't been able to find anything more modern than Davis. Apart from the admittedly pretty comical 2015 photograph. As for Davis, he was unfortunately killed in 2009, although not related to the Lizardman sighting. Well, while I've never been fortunate, or unfortunate, depending on his temperament, to meet the Lizardman, I did hear stories growing up. While the witness sightings have been pretty few and far between, it did make for excellent campfire stories to scare us when we were little. When I was in the Scouts, we would frequently camp in Lee State Park, which is near Bishopville where the sightings took place. Our leaders, and especially the older Scouts, loved telling us stories around the fire, highlighting the terrifying aspects of the Lizardman, like his red eyes, long claws, and propensity to attack Scouts that ventured from their tent late at night. Needless to say, after those stories, we would huddle in our tent afraid to go out. I guess nostalgia is why I've chosen the Lizardman, even though it's kind of a silly creature, to be my first video. So yeah, is there a Lizardman in Lee County? Probably not. But is it fun to think about? Absolutely. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode of Haunted South Carolina. It was admittedly a lot shorter than I wanted it to be. If you have any suggestions as to how I can improve, please do let me know. Like I've mentioned before, I've spent about a year making gaming videos, and this is completely different. If you've seen any of my gaming videos, you know that it took me about a month or two to really settle into my style. So if there's something about this video that's particularly grating, there is a pretty good chance that I will have addressed it in a future video. Similarly, if you have any suggestions for stories that I could cover, especially in South Carolina at the start, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm not opposed to covering other haunted or paranormal events, but I would like to stay in the state of South Carolina at the start. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to see you again in the next one.